Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
What is present? We spend so much time in our minds out in the past and in the future. What is really here? That's where we discover all that is in the present. I recently heard this quote from Father Gregory Boyle. He said, "Tenderness is the highest form of spiritual maturity." Tenderness. Tenderness. Had to be with that. Looking into our spiritual journeys and leading to even more open and tender hearts. Father Greg Boyle, he's the founder of Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles. Reverend Karen's talked about him before, and we got to hear him at convention a few years ago. This organization is the world's largest gang rehabilitation and re-entry program in the world. So you can imagine the kind of tenderness that it takes to serve people who have been in the most violent situations you can find yourself, and how he supports them in giving them work and also spiritual food to come back into their hearts and their authentic selves from having been raised in a hostile environment, to return to spirit and return to love. And that's that path of tenderness. And so tonight we're exploring spiritual healing. We're continuing on our journey of A Path with Heart, the Jack Kornfield work. And so tonight is the healing power of spiritual practice. And I invite you in your approach to healing to be tender with yourself. Because as we go into spiritual practice, a lot of things can arise that may want our attention, things that we have maybe neglected or avoided within ourselves that want to be heard. So knowing that it takes time, knowing that we have all the time that we need to do the work that we came to do, and that we're fully supported. Now, when we touch into our wounded places, like we did in the meditation, it can maybe feel like we're being ganged up on by our thinking. Can start working up, can start with triggers, negative thoughts can rush in. Unhealed issues can seem to rush in. And it's like, all hail, the gang's all here. I've heard those voices before. I've been with you before. Yeah, I know what you have to say. And it's our parents, siblings, exes, friends, teachers, whatever. Frenemies, whoever might be residing in our minds, and the voices in our mind that is speaking to us through that unhealed space. And so when we feel ganged up on, we want to be aware that we can go back into our coping mechanism, which could be addiction, it could be diversions, it could be avoidance tactics, coping strategies. We want to recognize that we have the strength to bring the presence to that wound, and also we want to do it in a supportive community like Unity. Now, many people who first start attending Unity, I've heard this story, it's my story and it's many people's story, that they come and they sit in the back at first and they're just crying for, many, it could be weeks, months, years. And so what causes that? What is that about? Well, the body is having that opportunity, hearing truth, being in meditation. Maybe Unity is the first place you ever meditated, you ever sat still and listened to spirit. Might be. Now, Achin Shah, who is Jack Kornfield's teacher, he said, if you haven't cried a number of times, your meditation hasn't really begun. So it's considered part and parcel of our meditation practice that we open our hearts to our emotional body, our emotional life, sensations, held experiences in the body, and give them space. And that may be a grieving process, and very often it could be. Since ancient times, spiritual practice has been considered a healing practice. We call Jesus the great physician or master healer, and Buddha was also known as a great healer of the body. If we're to mature as we move forward on our spiritual path, we must attend to these wounds that we carry. Now, when I came to Unity, I thought for sure meditation was leaving the body. It was like, Star Trek when they say space, the final frontier, to boldly go where no man has gone before. I thought that's what meditation is going to be. I'm going to boldly go where I've never gone before. And I had no idea that it would be going somewhere I've never gone before within myself. And so we boldly go to the ground of our being. And so if we're going into the ground, we're probably going to come up with some muck that comes up, along the way. And so that's our healing work. That's ours to do. Last time I spoke on Wednesday night, I asked if you were experiencing unity within yourself. And so I want to check in with you again tonight. Are you experiencing unity within yourself? And so we can call on a wise teacher. You can call on the wise teacher within you. In Unity, we call that the Christ consciousness. You can call it your Buddha nature, or whatever it is for you. That you can develop a relationship with the divine nature of yourself that is there to support you in your healing, that sees you whole, that can hold that space for you. So recognize that that's available for you to seek guidance, to seek a hand to hold as you walk through the practice. There's a story that Jack Kornfield tells of visiting a man who's a master teacher in Buddhism, and they called him the coconut monk, and he lived on an island in Vietnam. And this was during the time of the Vietnam War, and he went out to this island, and there was war raging all around them, but they took him to this sacred temple, Buddhist temple, and outside of the temple were these 6-foot-tall statues, and one was of Buddha and one was of Jesus, and they had their arms around each other. In the midst of this war going on around them, there were the master teachers with their arms around each other, sending love, sending compassion, light, and that's represents for me that presence within us. And Karen spoke on a few weeks ago, the war within, that war raging around us, those teachers, the teacher within you, always holding you in the warmest of lights and regard and love. We're always divinely supported. So why heal? If it's all this work and it's painful and I don't want to look at it, why bother at all, right? So why heal? Why? Well, we want to completely embody the spiritual life that we're walking, the principles that we say are our own, our unity principles or Buddhist principles, whatever path you're walking, that we want to embody it. So we must tend to our wounds so that we can walk lovingly, so that we can be a manifester of unity consciousness in the world, so we can walk wisely on our spiritual path. when we go into our unhealed spaces, there can be rage, there can be grief, there can be sorrow, unhealed traumas from our childhood. Perhaps it was abuse, abandonment, and those can become unconscious forces in our lives. And we may not always know the origin, but we can be in relationship with another person and get triggered and not even know the connection. And it's when we begin to do that healing work and move into those spaces that want to come to our awareness that we can no longer have to continue those unhealthy patterns and relationships in our lives and be able to come fresh to those people in our lives, in our wholeness, and avoid repeating the same unhealthy patterns over and over and over again. And so healing comes when we listen to what it is that wants to be heard, that's bubbling up within us. And so many of us, we consider ourselves stressed or having anxiety or depression, and these are, there are voices within us. There are sensations, feelings in our bodies that are wanting to be heard and are make themselves louder and louder through those conditions, right? And so we can bring our loving attention to them. Wendell Berry, the poet, shared this poem on the inward process. I go among the trees and sit still. All my stirring becomes quiet. Around me like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places where I left them, asleep like cattle. Then what I am afraid of comes. I live for a while in its sight. What I fear in it leaves it, and the fear of it leaves me. It sings, and I hear its song. So there's that healing process of when we give that experience an opportunity to be felt, that behind the fear, behind the sorrow, the rage, that there is your very own song that wants to be sung through that. And so we have to allow and let it be heard within us in the safe space of spiritual practice. When we listen for our songs of rage and fear and loneliness, longing, they don't stay with us forever. So that's the beauty of the practice, that they want to be heard. Rage may turn into sorrow. Sorrow can turn into weeping, but eventually the dawn breaks and the morning comes and there's healing. Our bodies will experience a release. Tears, we know, are healing. They're a way for our bodies to let go. Now, our bodies may shake. Jack Kornfield talks about all different kinds of sensations of our bodies releasing stuck energy. And it made me think of a voice work master teacher who I got to do an extended workshop with when I was an actor in New York, and her name is Catherine Fitzmaurice. And it was an amazing experience. And one of the things we had to do, we brought yoga mats, and we had to get in different positions. One of them was one that was like happy baby. I remember that, yoga position. And find the place where our body begins to shake. And just allow our bodies to just tremble. And that, to me, never felt like, I thought, well, if I'm shaking, I don't know, I'm having a seizure or something. It didn't seem like it was a good response. And the way she explained it was that it's actually your body's natural healing response in a way that it can release traumas and move into like homeostasis. And so that awakened me to a connection between what I'm holding in my body and my voice, because the whole purpose of that was to release the tension in our bodies so that our voices could be more free, so we could sing and act and all those things. And it was very powerful work, and something that just awakened me to some different possibilities to how our bodies express healing. And there's more of a range of what that looks like. So we've got unfinished business to do, right? We've got some unfinished business in our bodies, our hearts, our minds. And our culture teaches us to avoid pain. It's just part of how we've been trained. If you have pain, take a pill or have a drink or a drug or whatever it is that is food. Just want to get rid of that pain right away. And so we've lost our touch with our bodies and the inner wisdom in our bodies. And we tend to always be up in our head, future past, worries and that kind of thing. One of our Unity authors and minister, Eric Butterworth, he said, before you take a pill, how about having a prayer? How about praying? And that stayed with me because maybe I'm just in the rush of things and I've got a headache and just take something so I can get going. And my body's just trying to get my attention about something. And if I stay with it, and I turn to spirit with it, I just be with it, sometimes that energy just needed that attention and it may move. And that headache might be gone, or that pain or discomfort might become lessened, more tolerable, or even negligible. Just in that practice of bringing our tenderness to our inner life, getting in touch with it, and it may pass. It may pass. So there are two parts of healing on the healing path, according to Jack Kornfield. He said the first one is you want to find a teacher you can be honest with. Someone who, you're not expected to do this alone, this spiritual path. If you're a part of Unity, and Unity ministers are here for you, or find a mindfulness teacher, and someone who really can accept you and hold that sacred space for you when those dark fears arise within you. They can witness you and compassionately support you. In spiritual life, we also have people called spiritual directors, and that's the work of a spiritual director. That's one of the paths that I've taken in my journey to be a spiritual director, so that I can hold a safe space for those who I'm working one-on-one with, companioning on the spiritual journey, and just really being a witness and holding them in support in whatever is arising for them. I have a committed relationship with my spiritual director, and I found that to be of great healing support, to be seen even in my darkest moments and supported through that, to know that I have that trusted relationship. And through that trust, Jack Kornfield tells us we begin to learn how to build that trust with other people in our lives as well. And so the second part of healing on the spiritual path is bringing mindfulness off of the cushion, so to speak, or your meditation chair, and into every area of your life. So cultivating mindfulness in what the Buddha called the 4 foundations of mindfulness: awareness of the body and senses, awareness of the heart and feelings, awareness of mind and thoughts, and awareness of the principles that govern life. So in Buddhism, that would be the Dharma. In Unity, we call them universal laws or unity principles. And so bringing that awareness into all areas of our life and having a trusted teacher, or even a sangha or a place like Wednesday Night Satsang, where you have a group that you're meditating with regularly and you're on a path together. So the good news is, as we gradually awaken our awareness of all that we had shut out, our bodies, our hearts, our minds heal. They heal. Oscar Wilde said, "It's not the perfect, but the imperfect that is in need of our love." Think about how much, like I know for me, I'll take something I'm good at and just try to be even better at it. Just keep working to be more and more perfect in what's working, and maybe ignore the healing, what I don't want to look at, what I don't want to see. And so that is what is in need of our love and our tender attention. Jack Kornfield tells a story of a woman who came to a meditation retreat with cancer all over her body, and she had been told that she would die in a few weeks, but she was determined to heal herself using meditation as a tool for her healing. And so she took this retreat, focused on her meditation. She also got some excellent Chinese medicine, acupuncture. She was doing daily healing meditations. And so even though her belly was distended with cancer and it felt hot, the heat of cancer within it, the whole time she was feeling that. But even in that, by bringing her mindfulness and attention and tenderness to her practice, she was able to bolster her immune system so that she lived another 10 years, 10 good years, living well beyond that time. And she credited her healing attention with what kept her cancer in check for those 10 years. And so on the other hand, you could be like a person named Mullah Nasruddin. Mullah Nasruddin, he is a Sufi, wise and holy fool. And this is a man who had bought a donkey. And he had this donkey, he'd been feeding the donkey had to eat a lot, and so he decided that the donkey was costing him too much. So every day he just gradually fed the donkey less and less and less, until finally one day he was just giving him a cup of grain once a day as his food. And he thought, wow, my plan is succeeding. I'm saving lots of money. And then, unfortunately, the donkey died. And Nasruddin went to see his friends in the tea shop to tell them about what happened with his experiment. And he said, it's such a shame, because if the donkey had been around a little bit longer, maybe I could have gotten him to eating nothing. Can you imagine? So we can be like that when we ignore the needs of our bodies, our hearts and minds. It's like we're feeding our inner life nothing. We're starving ourselves of spiritual food that we so need, that inner healing work. With tenderness, with giving our minds, our bodies, our hearts the attention that they need, the gifts that we gain from that are regaining our intuition, getting in touch with that regularly, getting in touch with our feelings, our life, and our connection with all life, our unity with all life. When we connect to ourselves, naturally, we open up to all life. And many people experience a cleansing of their senses. Colors become more brilliant. Food tastes better. They experience a connection with their innate joy and their innocence. As we attend to our inner healing, we experience greater intimacy with all life. And isn't that the purpose of why we come together to practice our name, unity? Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.